So, today I bought an RTX 3090 on eBay. And the first thing you're probably wanting to ask me is, well, how much did I pay for it? Was it $1,200, $1,000, $900? No. I paid $800. And before I purchased the card, I did a bit of detective work with the serial number I was able to glean to see where it had exchanged hands in the past. The fact is, this card was actually sold for almost $2,800 total just about half a year ago. And yeah, I mean, I'm not going to disclose the exact model yet before I receive it, test it, and decide what I want to do with it in terms of like benchmarking and content. But I do need to talk about it maybe a bit prematurely because it really feeds into, well, what I want to talk to you guys predominantly about today, and that is how bad the Ampere oversupply situation is, because I actually think it's a lot worse than a lot of people realize. The fact is, I actually don't think I got an insane deal when I got a 3090 for $800. I actually think what I got was just the start of the new normal for used Ampere graphics card pricing. Now, let me explain a little more. I saw the serial number on the graphics card in one of the pictures on the eBay listing, and so I took that serial number, looked around, and tried to see if I could see another listing on eBay in the past, and indeed it was sold for new to someone else on eBay about half a year ago. I reached out to that eBay seller that I was looking to buy this $800 3090 from, and he confirmed that indeed he had paid up to about $2,800 for the card late last year, but he was willing to sell it to me for that price. And, you know, he had decent reviews for his profile, so this wasn't a guy known for ripping people off on eBay. And he just said he thought the prices were going to keep going lower, and he just wanted to get rid of some 3090 stock. This guy here is actually feeding into the other things I've been hearing behind the scenes. Indeed, telling you guys there's a lot of extra Ampere stock in the channels. It doesn't sound new, but the veracity and emotion in what I've been hearing this week, I feel like makes this new information for you all, right? I am getting just countless emails from contacts saying words like desperate and every man for himself, and many people worrying about massive losses for their company this year due to oversupply. In fact, I don't want to waste too much time. Let me get to a summary of some of the testimonials I've been okayed to share with you. And I have been vague about the exact SKU and numbers to protect sources, but these all come from some of my best contacts in the channels. One person says that they have been forced to swallow tens of thousands of high-end Ampere cards. I won't say the exact SKU, but it's one of the top ones, and they're worried they won't even be able to sell them for what they paid for them. But if they don't push these cards through the channel, Nvidia won't give them good allocation of Lovelace later this year. And another source who stockpiled tons of low-end Turing cards they paid up to $300 for each is desperate to sell them, even for $200, and thinks they're going to have to take massive losses. In fact, a third source told me that the DigiTimes report that's been circulating recently is correct, that Nvidia has so much extra Ampere stock that they are actually asking TSMC to cut production, which sounds insane. The only thing TSMC is willing to give them is a delay in the shipments. And so, yeah, this corresponds with something another source said, that the RTX 4000 series, whether they paper launch it before this month or not, may not launch with real volume until November or even December. It's just a perfect storm right now. We have a cryptocurrency crash, and so miners are flooding eBay with used cards, some of them that have only actually been mined on for about a month. And so don't be afraid to buy some of those cards, guys, if you can get them for a good price. But this also comes at the same time that we're entering a recession, and it seems like all gamers at the same time have gone, yep, I don't actually need to pay $1,000 for a toy. And then point number 3, actually, that I was told behind the scenes is that there's hundreds of millions of dollars worth of inventory that a lot of AIBs were planning to sell into Russia and into countries that are landlocked that rely on Russia to import product for them, and now they just can't. So we have a cryptocurrency mining crash, people saying they're not willing to pay more prices anymore, and a large market unwilling to even get some of the volume, and it's all being dumped in the West. And so Well, it's just a perfect storm. Such a perfect storm that Nvidia is actually considering delaying the launch of their next generation an entire quarter. And this is important information for you because, look, I'm not telling you to go out there and buy a 3090 for $1,000. I wasn't even willing to, and I use my graphics card for work where time is money. No, I'm telling you this because even if Nvidia does, and they will launch the 4090 this year, I don't think they're going to launch any 4060s or below, and even the 4070 may get delayed. So if you're one of those people, and this is most people, that are only willing to pay like $500 or less for a graphics card, if you see RTX 3080s hitting $500, and they're already hitting 600 and below on eBay, so I do think this is going to happen. If you see a 3080 for under $500 in the next month, or a 3070 for around $300, don't be afraid to get that graphics card and just sit tight because mid-range Lovelace is probably about a year away, and you could do worse when it comes to paying $300 for 3070 performance, even if a new generation is on the horizon. But let me also be clear about something else. Speaking of new generations, there is a cap on how long Nvidia can realistically wait to launch Ampere. I heard some people suggest that they may even try to launch Lovelace in Q1 next year, but the fact of the matter is, RDNA 3, and I'm told this consistently, is launching Q4. And in that same DigiTimes report that I now have multiple people backing up, AMD did not cut supply of 5 nanometer. I am forced then to conclude something that I've been telling you guys multiple times here and there. AMD wants to more harshly go for market share with RDNA 3 than they did with RDNA 2. Yeah, maybe they're cutting some 7 nanometer supply, but who knows what that could be. Could be Cezanne production, could be, IO dies for anything. The AMD makes so many different products for so many different markets. The fact that they're cutting some 7/6 nanometer supply isn't a big deal when you hear that they aren't cutting 5 nanometer supply in a world where both Nvidia and Apple are. And so Nvidia is going to need to launch Lovelace, I think, by November, because it's going to have to compete with RDNA 3 that is not going to be delayed. And in fact, when I speak to AMD AIBs, they don't sound nearly as worried as Nvidia AIBs. They say that they made enough cards and they didn't try to oversupply the mining market, and they're just excited to get RDNA 3 and sell a bunch of it this holiday season. So now that I'm done telling you what I think is the most important information in this video, that the crazy graphics card prices you're seeing all over the place right now are probably here to stay for at least a few months, and in fact, they're probably going to get even better to the point that Nvidia's delaying an upcoming generation, I want to talk about some other upcoming products that have, well, some details about them disputed online and some more delays for me to report. And that, of course, you hear delays, I'm talking about Intel products. Recently, I talked about Intel showing off Z790 motherboards in about a month from now, and even detailed the fact that multiple contacts of mine were sure of PCIe Gen 5 SSD support for at least some Z790 motherboards. And, well, there's been some debate online, but I just want to say it. I am 100% sure there will be Z790 boards with Gen 5 M.2 support, despite all of the fuss. But I do have to adjust one thing. I do think that AMD will still have a decent platform advantage with their AM5 platforms versus Z790, and I actually think AMD may have a massive advantage when it comes to release timing. I want to talk about that also today, but first, an ad from a sponsor. Look at this, Reese. Intel's Alchemist A380 actually performs pretty great in 3D Mark, but then how can it also get that frame rate in most games? Gotta tell you, covering upcoming hardware releases can be really stressful. I have to admit that I often enjoy a drink or two after work because of this, and, well, wine and beer can just get boring, and besides a gin and tonic, I don't know how to make mini cocktails, and frankly, I don't think it's worth my time to stock an entire bar's worth of ingredients just to be able to make them either. Well, that was until I heard about Shaker and Spoon. This piece of content is sponsored by Shaker and Spoon, a subscription service that puts everything you need, besides the alcohol, into a convenient box that serves 12 different cocktails from 4 different recipes. You buy the alcohol yourself, which makes this service usually much cheaper than competing wine or beer subscriptions, and also allows you to learn about different spirits and flavor combinations that you've never tried before, while entertaining friends and family with your new mixology skills by creating complex and excellent craft cocktails that you don't have to spend an hour hunting for really specific ingredients for at the grocery store. And they have packages for whatever your favorite liquor is, from gin to bourbon, whiskey, vodka, rum, and more. If you're interested, and I actually do really like this service, the cocktails I made myself were delicious, use the link in the description and use the code BrokenSilicon to get $20 off. Using the offer code BrokenSilicon and clicking on this link below really helps support Moore's Law is Dead. It also helps you make fun cocktails without wasting much time or money. Try Shaker and Spoon today. So yeah, last week I did a video that actually predominantly talked about various Zen 3, Zen 3D, and Zen 4 Ryzen products and what people were saying behind the scenes about what the chances are of each one coming to AM4 or AM5 over the next year or two. And, well, I guess somewhat unsurprisingly though, most websites just reported on what was in the first few minutes about Z790, and to a certain extent I get it. I think I'm the first one to kind of leak when Intel's going to unveil Z790, and I also confirmed that there's almost no way Intel launches the Raptor Lake CPUs before the motherboards, even if the motherboards make the release get delayed farther, which I'll have more to say about that later in this video. But then also a lot of people started arguing about recent slides showing that Z790 might not support PCIe 5.0 M.2 drives. And the fact is, well, it won't be as robust as X670E or really even B650E from AMD later this year. No, Intel will support PCIe 5.0 M.2 drives with Z790. However, the type of support they will have has been massively nerfed. And I want to be clear about this. These are my best sources that told me this. These are the people that got me Raptor Lake core counts and performance a year before it comes out. These are people that tell me about things like, you know, LGA 1851 and Redwood Cove. These are not people that are guessing. This is really specific information. But the fact remains that if you want to have PCIe 5.0 SSDs with Raptor Lake, it sounds like you're going to have to pull from the GPU lanes, and this was a change. I've been given the okay to show one of these quotes here from a source who said that they were directly told early this year that in response to what they were hearing about AMD's AM5 platforms, that they would have the 4 additional lanes of PCIe be Gen 5, not Gen 4. But that as of about a month ago, something's changed. That Intel doesn't believe the platform will be able to support it without expensive platform costs. And Intel already actually feels like they're going to have a pricing disadvantage to AMD's B650 and X670 chipsets. And actually, to my surprise, there are quite a few Alder Lake motherboards out right now that already do this. They just haven't advertised it, which I guess they can be forgiven for that. Why would you advertise supporting PCIe 5.0 SSDs when you can't buy PCIe 5.0 SSDs yet? But indeed, right now, some of the most expensive Alder Lake motherboards let you pull from the GPU lanes to support one of these future M.2 drives. Although curiously, none of them seem to allow you to have 2 Gen 5 SSDs. They just have room for 1 slot. And when I reached out to one of my contacts, just curious, like, why wouldn't, if they're going to cut your PCIe GPU bandwidth in half, you know, from 16 lanes to 8, why wouldn't they give you 2 SSDs? And I was told it's because they don't have a eloquent way of doing something with those dormant slots if they're not being used. And so there's not really room on the motherboard to have 2 M.2 slots, or at least they don't feel like that was worth the effort. So right now on Alder Lake, you can have on some of the most expensive Z690 boards an M.2 SSD, but you're really just wasting 4 of the 5.0 lanes if you do that. Now, so my suspicion is that what's going to happen with Raptor Lake is you're going to see not every motherboard do it, certainly, and most won't, but more motherboards than before with Z690 advertise themselves as Gen 5 M.2 SSD ready and have a couple of slots for them somewhere on the motherboard, in that those manufacturers and maybe even Intel themselves will argue, hey, if you've got a PCIe 5.0 graphics card, which RDNA 3 at least will be that, by the way. 8 lanes of that is enough. That's the same as PCIe 4.0 times 16. And to be honest, I don't know that they're wrong. I don't think you're really going to bottleneck a 5.0 GPU as long as it is a 5.0 GPU for the most part. But at the same time, long term, I don't know. I mean, these cards are rapidly innovating in performance every generation. Again, I can't promise you RDNA 4 won't be hamstrung a little bit if you only give it 8 lanes for one of the top cards. And so, I don't know. I just guess this is kind of another PSA. I warned you earlier in this video that graphics card prices are actually probably going to keep getting cheaper over the next few months, and it may even delay Lovelace. I'm also telling you that be on the lookout for Z790 motherboards advertising themselves as Gen 5 SSD ready, because I was told that this is going to be the plan. But if you buy one of those motherboards, it's going to come with sacrifices AMD motherboards don't need to make. And speaking of AMD not having to make as many sacrifices, I actually think Intel is in a pickle here then when it comes to pricing their Z790 motherboards. Right now, Alder Lake Z690 motherboards are priced above X570, but they come with a bit better of a platform. That won't be true against X670, and as I've covered multiple times already, X670, B650 are cheaper than their predecessors to manufacture long-term, relatively speaking. In other words, while there will of course be some milking early on with AMD's B650E especially and X670E motherboards, they shouldn't need to cost much more. Like, as prices settle down, there's no reason that you won't see X670 motherboards below 300, B650 Extreme motherboards that can support Gen 5 lanes for the graphics card and Gen 5 M.2 SSDs without polling lanes from the graphics card. There's no reason those B650E motherboards can't be $200. And there's no reason then the B650 motherboards can't be like $130. And again, meanwhile, Z790 I think costs more to make than that. So I don't know what Intel's going to do, because if they try to charge $500 for a motherboard that cuts your PCIe lanes in half for the graphics card, who the heck's going to choose that over a Zen 4 platform that doesn't make any of those sacrifices and costs the same or less? And this gets me then to talking about why, once again, I got to tell you guys, I think Raptor Lake may have some competitive disadvantages against AMD Zen 4 Raphael. It's not because I'm a fanboy, it's because I'm telling you they're going to be selling Raptor Lake on a platform that I think will cost the same as AMD's best platforms, well, having inferior features. And this is where I put out some new Raptor Lake whispers. Let's put them on screen. From what I am hearing, Raptor Lake is not being pulled up. I'm leaving this in white text because at this point it's getting a little depressing for me to double down on it. But like I said recently in a podcast, I have already been getting iffy about even Raptor Lake coming out in October, and multiple sources are pointing to it coming out in November. And again, Raptor Lake and Raphael will be similar performance. So if AMD is able to launch a CPU 1 or even 2 months before the competition with a better platform, with a cheaper platform, who cares if it loses Cinebench single threading by like 5 to 10%? Who cares? And in fact, a lot of people I talk to think in reality Raptor Lake's volume won't be until Q1 next year. And let me just put this back up again. I actually am now getting an indication that LGA 1851, which is the motherboard platform to support Meteor Lake Desktop and Arrow Lake Desktop, isn't even expected until 2024. And so if you buy a Raptor Lake system, just know that's it for you over a year, and it's going to have to compete with Zen 4 with Vcache. Hopefully this series of PSAs about Intel products in the second half of this video is starting to hit home with some of you who've been arguing with me about a point I've been trying to drive home for the past month. It's not Zen 4 versus Raptor Lake, or better put, it's not an i9 13900K versus an R9 7950X. It's AMD's overall platform versus Intel's overall platform that dictates who wins. And it is not one CPU at the top that most of you won't buy. It's the series of CPUs, the overall pricing, when they come out, what you pay for their motherboard, and if you can even upgrade to something on that motherboard a few years from now. That is what determines a better product. And with that, I will now determine that I am done with this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Please make sure you're subscribed to the Moore's Law is Dead YouTube channel. It seems like almost half of you watching videos aren't, and ring the bell button so you don't miss upcoming videos. And if you have the extra money, you can support our sponsors. You can give a super thanks in the comments below, or most importantly, you can also just support Moore's Law is Dead on Patreon, where you'll get early ad-free access to Broken Silicon, the ability to ask me and guest questions, the exclusive podcasts like Die Shrink, free questions on loose ends, access to the Discord, and so much more for just $2 or $4 a month. And there's even higher tiers if you want more content and support there as well. But besides all of that, as always, thank you for watching.